Good evening, class. Today we will be looking at public finance, and we will start by defining public finance. What is it? It's a macroeconomic discipline which deals with the principles concerning the collection of government revenue and how it is allocated for public expenditure in order to achieve certain objectives and targets in the economy. Branches of public finance. Public finance is made up of the following branches. Number one, public revenue. It deals with the methods of raising public revenues through public taxation. Number two, public expenditure. It deals with total amount of money that government spends on social services and the effects of such expenditure. The government spends public revenue on services such as defense, health, infrastructure, and education. Public debts. It deals with the cause and effects of debts which the state, local authorities, and public corporations borrow for various reasons. It also examines the method of public debt management. Financial administration. This deals with the preparation and the sanctioning of the budget and auditing of all government ministries, government departments, and all other organs of the state. Then fiscal policy. It studies the use of public finance operations, especially taxation through budget to supplement the monetary policy so as to bring about economic stability and growth in the economy. Sources of government revenue. Where does government get money? Taxes. Taxes are the most vital sources of government revenue. It is a compulsory contribution by the population to any public authority. License. This is the payment meant to the government by an individual in order to secure permissions or rights to operate trade or business or any other gainful activity. Then we've got fines. They are penalties imposed on citizens who break the laws of the country. They form also a substantial source of government revenue. Fees. These are payments made by individuals for personal services rendered by the government, e.g., money paid for surveying the land of an individual. Gifts and grants. They are voluntary contributions made by individuals and societies to the government for meeting the costs of specific projects, schemes in public interest. Disinvestment or privatization. It involves the sale of state-owned farms and assets to private individuals, and the proceeds are used to finance other government obligations. Compulsory savings. The government also gets revenue from such savings like insurance payments, social security funds, etc. Then we've got treasury bills, bonds. The government may at times float its treasury bills to the public as a means of raising revenue. Loans, borrowings. The government can at times borrow internally or externally. That is from the public or from foreign countries to finance its budget deficits. Government investment. The government also gets its revenue in form of profits from its commercial productive activities or the public corporations. Deficit financing. At times, there's a shortage of money supply in the economy. Then the government may print more money to finance its obligations. This is usually inflationary in nature. Rates. These are payments made on urban private properties, e.g. land, houses, etc. They are usually calculated on the basis of the value of income received or property value. Reasons why the government imposes taxes. Number one, to raise revenue. Taxes are the major sources of government revenue, and it is the primary purpose of imposing taxes. The revenue collected is used to finance development, economic projects, and promote economic growth. Number 2, redistribute income. Through progressive taxes, inequalities of income can be reduced by taxing the rich heavily and the poor less, and by granting subsidies from tax revenue to industries and projects that benefit the poor. Number 3, to protect home industries. The home industries, especially infant industries, can be protected by imposing heavy taxes on commodities coming from outside, thus making the imports expensive and encouraging the consumption of locally available commodities. Excuse me, get out of here. I'm recording something and you... Okay. Let's continue. To correct the balance of payment deficit, when taxes are imposed on imports, taxes can be used to reduce consumption and expenditures on imports because the imports become more expensive, and therefore it is an attempt to correct balance of payment deficits. Reasons why government imposed taxes continued. To discourage consumption of dangerous goods, taxes can be imposed on commodities which are considered dangerous to human health so as to make items expensive and discourage their consumption. Consumption of such products may include polythene, alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs. Control inflation. Taxes can be imposed so as to reduce the disposable income and consequently to reduce demand pressure in the economy. To discourage dumping, the government may also impose taxes on dumped commodities so as to raise their prices and reduce their competitive advantage over the locally produced commodities. Another point, to control monopolies. When imposed a lump sum tax can control monopolies by increasing the cost of production and reducing their profit margins, forcing them to improve their output and open up. Another point, promote savings. The government can tax and discourage the consumption of luxuries so as to encourage people to save for economic growth and development. Now let's look at principles of taxation. These are also called canons of taxation. Number 1, equality or equity. A tax should impose equal sacrifice on all taxpayers. The burden of the tax should be distributed equally to people's ability to pay. There are 2 types of equality, namely horizontal equality and vertical equality. Now let's move on to another principle, certainty. The nature of the taxpayer, its base, the amount to be paid, the time of payment, the manner of payment should all be certain and known and not arbitrary. Convenience principle. Taxes should be collected during periods which are convenient to the taxpayer in respect of time, season, and availability of income. It should be imposed when the taxpayer is in a position to pay. The mode and the places of payment should also be convenient. Economy principle or cheapness. The cost of collecting the tax should be small in relation to the tax revenue. That is, the general cost of collection and administration of tax should be lower than the total revenue realized. Other principles include productivity principle, elasticity, simplicity, and flexibility. You can read on. Now, let's look at public expenditure. Public expenditure is the amount of money the government spends on social services and the effects of such expenditures. Types of public expenditure. We've got 3 types of expenditures. We've got recurrent expenditure. This is the money the government spends on daily consumption of goods and services in order to carry out administrative activities and to maintain law and order throughout the country. These are expenditures that are continuous and that are made in order to facilitate the day-to-day operations of the government. Capital development expenditure. This involves government expenditure on investments in sectors such as agriculture, industries, machinery and equipment, infrastructure, power, etc. Then we've got transfer payments. This is the money spent by the government on emergencies like relief and other types of disasters. It includes grants, pension, scholarship, bursary, resettlement packages, etc. Now let's look at fiscal policy. What is it? Fiscal policy is a set of economic measures that use the public finance operations, especially taxation and government spending, through the budget to bring about economic stability in the country. What are the aims or the importance of fiscal policy? It is done by reducing money supply in the economy, by increasing taxes, reducing government expenditure, and internal borrowings in order to deflate the economy. So, why do we do it? We do it to reduce unemployment in the economy by increasing expenditure on investment projects and decreasing taxes and increasing internal borrowing. Also, to achieve more equitable income distribution in the economy. This is done by levying progressive taxes, subsidizing and setting up projects for the poor. Further, to improve the infrastructure so as to raise the productivity of the economy. This involves setting up roads, schools, etc. To attain a balanced economic growth. This can be achieved through balancing expenditure between sectors and regions. To protect home industries against aggressive competition from well-established domestic firms. To improve balance of payment. This can be achieved by raising prices of imports through high import duties, thereby reducing the import bills to overcome balance of payment. Also, to provide social services and raise labor productivity. This is through building hospitals, schools, etc., and other social services. Government budget. What is it? A government budget is a fiscal statement of the revenue and expenditure estimate of the government for a particular accounting period, usually 1 year. It is usually prepared on an annual basis and presented to the Parliament by the Minister of Finance for approval. A budget deals with policy techniques that are aimed at directing the course of the nation for the coming year or fiscal year, while also giving a preview of the previous one. Types of budget. Government budget is basically of two categories, namely the balanced budget and the unbalanced budget. Balanced budget. This occurs when the projected fiscal revenue equals the proposed total expenditure in a financial year. This is the planned revenue equals planned expenditure. Unbalanced budget. This is a type of budget in which the planned expenditure and revenue are not equal. There are two types, namely the deficit budget and the surplus budget. Surplus budget. It is one which the projected revenues is greater than planned expenditure in a given period, usually 1 year. Deficit budget. This is where the expenditure is greater than revenue within a fiscal year. Functions of a budget. Number one, it indicates the estimate of revenue. It indicates the estimate of recurrent and development expenditure of the government. It outlines the economic and social policies whose implementation require government expenditure. The government budget stabilizes the economy through the fiscal policy. It regulates government expenditure and programs. Public debt. This includes national debt plus the debt incurred by the local government authorities and public corporations. National debt is a debt owned by the central government to the people and the institutions within its own borders. We've got internal debt and, of course, foreign debt. So here we've got where we have foreign creditors, that is external debt. National debt, therefore, refers to debt which the government, central government, owns both to its nationals and outsiders, but does not include the debt incurred by the local authorities. Measures to reduce the debt burdens or debt servicing: increase exports and expansion of foreign markets for the exports, improvement of the domestic market so as to create a self-sustaining economy, reduction of domestic consumption to boost domestic investment. This helps to produce more goods for export to increase foreign exchange earning. Reduction of imports by imposing strict foreign exchange conditions. Reduction in the volume of debt programs to reduce borrowing from international financial market. Also, adoption of import substitution industries to reduce the need to import expensive commodities and save foreign exchange. Reduction of unproductive loans whose payment impose heavy burden on the population and are now self-liquidating. Regulation of government expenditure to reduce government budget deficit, which are often caused by borrowings. Encourage borrowing from low-interest sources to pay high-interest loans. Improving terms of trade of the commodities so as to improve balance of payment and minimize the need for borrowing. Debt cancellation, where the creditors are persuaded to cancel the debt. Debt relief measures, where the affected countries get debt relief from the creditor nations. Challenges of public debt. An external debt leads to transfer of resources to a foreign country, and this imposes a burden to the society as a whole. It may widen income disparity when the repayment of locally incurred debt redistributes income from the poor to the rich. This is because it is the rich who can afford to lead the government, yet it is the poor who pay taxes to enable the government to repay the rich. The availability of loans encourage government to use tax revenue on unproductive expenditures. Borrowing shifts the burden of repayment to the future generations who took no part in the decision to incur the loans. Also, debt servicing leads to foregoing current expenditure or consumption, especially the social service and infrastructure which is stalled. It encourages debt dependence on other governments and institutions that lends. External debt puts pressure on the balance of payment position due to debt servicing. Debt servicing limits capital accumulation and investment in the economy. It may lead to inflation situation in the economy, and that's the end.